started. So thank you everyone for joining. I am very excited. Not only is this the first call of 2017, but it's also the first call for Your Productive Biz. So for those of you that don't know, I started this new company at the end of last year so that I can highlight and really focus in on productivity coaching, which is really kind of one of my passions that I have. So this is Your Productive Biz first phone call. And then we will be doing these every third Tuesday of the month at 5 p.m. I was saying 5 to 6, but they rarely last that long. So they'll start at 5, and hopefully everyone can get on and catch on and at the right time. But there's always going to be a replay. I will definitely be replaying. So if you've been following, this is sort of a pre-launch for Your Productive Biz. I plan on launching officially in February. And this is a business where I provide business coaching with a niche in productivity. And as a business productivity coach, I work with entrepreneurs that want to stop procrastinating, gain control over the use of their time, and accomplish projects and goals that matter to them the most. So if that's something that you're interested in, or you're ready to commit to being more productive and balanced, definitely get with me and let's talk. I do have 3 open slots for one-on-one clients. The majority of my clients are going to be in a group coaching, but I do have 3 one-on-one slots. So once those are filled, that'll be the end of that. And I have more details on my coaching program that I'll provide at the end. And that will be more specifically about my pilot program. So I will be piloting the coaching program first before I launch it officially. And that is a good opportunity for anyone who wants to get the information, but might want to get a cheaper price. It's a significantly cheaper price as I pilot the program. So like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. If you don't know me, my name is Jice, and the purpose of these calls are to really kind of dig in deep and give you some real information that is relevant to business owners. I want to make sure this is not just a gloss over. And so I have started beginning all of my calls letting people know that is the case. And that stems from someone who let me know that they felt that the call was a lot of information kind of coming at them at once. So now I can let you know ahead of time, yes, it's a lot of information kind of coming at once. So that being said, today's call is about chronic disorganization and why it costs you more than you realize. So the cost of disorganization, inefficiency, and lack of productivity can be staggeringly detrimental to businesses in time, resources, and lost revenue. And additionally, those effects can be long-lasting and take a significant investment to turn around, and they often cause businesses to close their doors permanently. And I think that's why I wanted to start off this year talking about this, because there are a lot of businesses that feel that there's all these different areas, but if you really track down a lot of times to the root cause, there was a lot of disorganization within the organization, getting the organization started, getting it off its feet. So that organization can be in the form of what's actually taking place in the business, and it can also be what's taking place in the business owner's life that's not allowing them to really balance or be productive and meet goals. This organization is often a really slow leak. And what I mean by this is you don't always feel the effects or the cost immediately. So for a significant amount of small business owners, they end up working in their business versus on their business. And they go from task to task without spending adequate time on growth strategy and implementation of those strategies. So I'll give you a really good example. I'm going to be conservative in this. We're going to talk about email. Let's just say you bill your hours at $75 an hour. And for a lot of small businesses, especially in the service industry, that's very conservative. But let's just say you bill at $75 an hour. If you check your email 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, so we're not even going to count the weekends, checking your email, or we'll say wasting time up to an hour a day on email. Again, an hour being extremely conservative for how often or how long people are spending time on email. 5 days a week, that equates to $19,500 worth of value that you've spent on email. And what I would ask you to ask yourself is, are you getting $19,500 worth of value from your email? Is your email bringing in that type of clientele? Usually you're in email answering questions, checking, putting out fires, or, reading through spam. And because we're not effective in organizing our time around how we conduct our email, that number is really conservative. A lot of entrepreneurs spend way more time than an hour on their email. So I just wanted to kind of put that in some numeric and dollar amounts to give us a really solid idea of what we are spending our time on. And in business, of course, our time equals our money. So that lost time also means lost opportunity. But I'll touch a little bit more on that as we go. So oftentimes, simply addressing our disorganization can be difficult. Most small business owners are making or are capable of making high-level decisions. And so you can do really big things. You are doing really big things. But the trouble oftentimes is managing those little things. It's the little details. And this stress is actually such a large issue that there is a survey that shows that 51% of entrepreneurs feel that disorganization is affecting their earnings. And 40% currently have or have suffered from depression. So this is a real thing. Like, this is an issue of entrepreneurs not feeling productive, not accomplishing their goals, having severe cases of overwhelm, and being, just overloaded with papers and emails and information coming at them that they're not able to navigate through and organize themselves, much less their mind, to begin to focus in on their goals. So we often don't like to admit that we face some of these high levels of dissatisfaction in our businesses or professional life. But the amount of people suffering from depression because of these issues, I believe tells a different story. It can be very dissatisfying for things to not turn out the way that we envision them. And this can be largely tied to our level of disorganization. So when we're talking about time, how much time are we really saying? A Wall Street Journal report claims that 6 weeks alone can be lost searching for lost information. This is not time that you're spending on new research. This is just looking for what you misplaced. So think about what goals you could have accomplished to move your business forward that you are literally spending looking for a bill or an invoice or that one sheet of paper with that one person's number on it. I mean, this is literally happening. And this isn't just happening for entrepreneurs. This is happening for high-level executives. 6 weeks alone just looking for lost information. This is a big thing. This is actually so big that the paper shredding industry is now a $1.5 billion industry. There are over 600 paper shredding companies. This was up from 25 paper shredding companies 30 years ago. This industry has been on the move. And this is just to get rid of paper, because the number one clutter issue is paper. So this is really costing people. So let's talk about what it's costing. I'm going to start by talking about the easy cost. The things that we can remember and find easily that cost us money due to disorganization. Fees, late fees, missing out on early registration, rush fees, having to pay overnight shipping. So fees are a big one, and we can probably all at least think of one or two examples off the top where, because we were not organized, we had to pay some sort of fee somewhere, extra fee rather. Some of the other areas are repurchases. We might, you bought something, you can't find it, but you need it, so you have to go out and buy it again. And then what really sucks about that is as soon as you go and buy it again, you find it. But having to repurchase things is a big deal. Also, lost invoices or forgetting to invoice a client. I actually have a couple of people that have a problem with this. They are struggling with their cash flow, and one of the biggest issues is they haven't billed clients. And it's because they haven't put the time or properly allocated time to build their clients. So those are some of the things that are easy to see, easy to catch. We can probably all think of a time where we faced one of those situations. So let's talk about some of those harder costs. They're harder to measure. They're not as tangible, but they are just, if not more, important. So let's talk about lost time towards goals or opportunity. I mentioned that 6 weeks of time. I even mentioned that checking email, for 1 hour a day, and how all of that adds up to time not spent on moving your goals forward. So there's lost opportunity there. There's also the inability to expand your business. And I see this a lot in small businesses where you have ideas on what you want to do to expand. However, you're not really able to get there because, again, you're working in the business instead of on the business. And oftentimes this is very frustrating, and this is one of the ways that businesses go out of business, because a few years down the line, you'll find yourself still in that same place. And so if you're not put out of business because of the loss of income or revenue, you might be put out of business because you have lost passion for what it was that you started doing, because you're kind of on this rat wheel. You're not moving forward. There's also stress. So we talked a little bit about that in terms of how many people are, suffering from depression or are realizing that they're losing, revenue from being disorganized. There's also the lack of client retention and getting referrals. So if you're finding that you are not having repeat customers, a lot of times that could be to your disorganization. And it's not necessarily that your product wasn't good. It's not necessarily if you're service-based that your service wasn't good, but it could have been slow turnaround time. It could have been issues with not being, keeping up with clients, not following up on time. So there's a lot of different ways that disorganization can show through the cracks and can often put off our customers, much less stop them from giving us any type of referrals. So this is important because we know how important the credibility to a small business is and how much good service impacts a small business, especially if you don't have, or if you don't have a tight niche. If there are a lot of substitutes in your field, then poor service will cause a client to look elsewhere, very easily. They're not going to refer you business if they can go and find 20 other people who were doing what you're doing and they weren't very pleased with what happened, or they felt like you weren't organized. So, that saying, how bad news spreads, a lot faster than good news. So that's something for us to keep in mind. There are also several causes to why we find ourselves disorganized. So I'm going to transition into some of those causes, and I'm going to list them all, but I'm only going to go into a couple of them that I want to focus on as a part of this call so that we can really tune in on how to fix some of this in our lives for the sake of ourselves and our businesses. And I just want to go back before I move in that direction and point out that I really wanted to start the year off with this so that we could go through the solution part and we can really begin to add organization back onto our list of things to do to accomplish this year. A lot of times we think about it and then we take it off our list. I have other things that are more important. But when we stay in this rat wheel, for lack of a better term, you can't afford to not take the time to get yourself organized. Because as you continue to run down the same line over and over and over again and not seeing your goals met and not seeing the success that you can really achieve, it really takes a toll on you. And so this year, you must put it in yourself to be more productive, to hit your goals. You can't afford to have another year go by with missed opportunities, thinking about what you could have done if only, thinking about the things that have hindered you that you failed to fix. So as we go into looking at the causes, just begin to focus your mind around the solutions. So what causes disorganization? HGTV put out an article about 5 causes behind disorganization. So those 5 causes, the first one is situations. someone becomes ill or dies or loses a job, and it throws things off. It's really normal for things to be thrown off, and usually within a few months you can get yourself back on track. So those are things that happen normally due to major situations. There's also bad habits, and we'll talk a little bit about this, but these are basically self-created. Ultimately, you have developed these bad habits over time. You stack papers, in a pile. You throw things into a drawer. You forget they exist. Those are bad habits. Those are not, those are things that can definitely be fixed and overcome. The third one is how you were raised. So it's like your history. This can fall on both sides of the coin. So you can have someone who was raised with parents who are really strict on cleanliness, and then they rebel against that, and so they reject organization. And on the other side of that, you can have people who are raised in chaos, and because of that chaos, they just embrace that as a way of life. And so it doesn't necessarily matter if you were raised in disorganization or not. It depends on how you accepted or rejected what you were raised in. Then there's also social disorganization. So this comes from social pressure. Oftentimes the need for us to have more, especially in Western culture. Like, we have to have more stuff. We just keep piling up stuff. The amount of storage units that are now out there is just ridiculous. Storage units all the time because people just collect stuff. And then the last one is chronic disorganization. And this one is tough because this one is when you have really, really tried and failed at organizing yourself and changing your habits, and you often feel really overwhelmed. Chronic disorganization is now almost considered I can't think of the word, but it's a real thing. It's almost like ODD. Like, you can really have a real issue with disorganization where you have really tried and it's just not working. And there are resources out there for that. And I will drop a couple of those resources when I do the replay. Inside of the links for the replay, some of those resources will be in there. So if that's something that you feel that you suffer from, or someone else that suffers from, you can provide them with those resources, because there is actual help out there for people who have made real, genuine attempts to organize themselves, and they really suffer from it and are having like anxiety attacks and bouts of depression and things like that are stemming from their lack of being able to organize themselves. So knowing that this problem affects a significant amount of business owners and the costs are detrimental to your health and the health of your business, what do we do to fix it? So before I get into those steps, I want to address a step that's more on the mental side. I want to talk about getting our minds in order. And I want us to recognize as a part of the solution that things are not disorganized. Things are not disorganized. People are disorganized. And part of that boils down to your thoughts and your mind not being organized. So take some time to organize yourself from a mental perspective. Block out some time, set up your calendar, have a clear picture of where you are wanting to be and when you are wanting to be there, and what steps in what order it will take to get there. And learn to let things go. Again, the accumulation of things allows our minds to stay cluttered. We just have stuff everywhere. Physical things in our space can allow our minds to be cluttered. And also to work on improving your memory. And I myself am working on this. I'm horrible with memory. But memory is an active activity. It's not passive. When someone tells you something, it actually takes work to get it in your mind and remember what it is that person said. So working on your memory can also really help to organize your mind because you're focusing in on things of importance. So now we're going to talk about some tangible things that you can do to get organized. So one is going to be to work on your schedule. That's going to mean to block out times that you do things that you do regularly, and then block out time. You should always add extra time onto that. So if it takes you an hour to do something, add an hour and a half easily. You might even want to add 2 hours. And some of this is going to take a little trial and error so that you can determine for yourself what kind of time it does normally take, and also to account for the fact that we are not in control of everything. And there are going to be things that come up that are just out of our ability to have foreseen or to plan around. And so we have to, at least at a minimum, the thing we can do is always give ourselves extra time. So block out time on your calendar for the things you do regularly, and then block out time on your calendar for working on larger projects and goals. And organization would be one of those things. So if you make it your intention to get yourself organized, you can't do it all in one day. Block out time on your calendar to take care of chunks, and over time, you're going to see yourself begin to get more organized. Okay, the second thing would be to list out and prioritize your tasks. So a lot of people don't run off of a to-do list or a task list. I don't recommend this. What I recommend is that always, at minimum, the night before, reviewing your schedule. You can review your schedule for the week, but at the very minimum, review your schedule for the next day, because this is how things pop up on you. You forget about appointments you were supposed to have or places you were supposed to go. They weren't in your calendar, or you didn't review your calendar. So you've planned out a day without planning out time for what you had already put in your schedule. So once you're looking at your day, you can also make your to-do list for the day and prioritize that, so that the things that you need to get done that are most important to moving you closer to your goals are at the top of that list. And as the saying goes, you eat that frog. You do those things first to make sure they get done, because they were the most important things that you needed to do to move your business forward. So you always want to make sure you take a look at minimum the night before. Also, work on getting some accountability. And when I talk about accountability, I mean real accountability. Because as a people, as an organization, as a business group, we tend to allow ourselves to not meet our goals. And then we have that one friend who's like, oh, it's okay. You got it. You were just tired. You're human. And all of those things are true. Don't get me wrong. But if you allow for yourself to continue to slip, and to continue to not hold yourself accountable for that, and to continue to give yourself a pass, then you're kind of missing the point of accountability. So find someone who is going to really hold you accountable. Not someone who's going to soothe your feelings, but someone who's really going to hold your feet to the fire, as they say, and make you feel uncomfortable to come and say, yeah, I didn't quite finish that this week. And so a part of that accountability is also assessing why things weren't completed, so that you can make adjustments. So accountability isn't to come down on yourself. Accountability is to push and get to your goals. And if you miss the mark, to assess why you missed the mark and how you can adjust to not miss the mark again. So get some accountability. So I have three more here. So we're going to talk about, or I want to mention, creating processes, routines, and systems. And this requires changing habits. And let's just be honest, changing habits, not the easiest thing to do. So I don't want to make it seem like you can just jump up and change. However, these things take time, but however, they work. Having routines work. Creating processes that can be repeated are priceless to your business. This may take some time researching. This may take time actually finding out, which processes or what technology out there may work for you. It may take time in creating and setting up the system. But once it's set up, once it's created, it should really take a huge load off of you. So I want to encourage you to invest the upfront time and energy and the resources, so that on the back end you can really reap those benefits. And when you're looking at those systems and processes and routines, you want to start by assessing your business and finding the areas that cause you the most grief or cause you bottlenecks in your business, and address those areas first. All right, so the next thing is going to be focusing on tasks that produce revenue. You need to learn how to start delegating. And I think this is one of the hardest things for small business owners, especially if you're a solopreneur and it's only you. It's oftentimes hard to delegate. And there's lots of ways to delegate, whether that's hiring someone. You can get an accountant, you can get a virtual assistant, you can, find a friend who doesn't have a business who can help you with, packaging up your product, or whatever the case might be. There's lots of ways for you to delegate what you need to do and get your and be able for yourself to focus on the things that only you can do in your business. And I think that's important for us to understand. You should be focusing on strategy, growth, and tasks that bring revenue into your business. And the last one that I'll talk about is sorting and decluttering. Going into decluttering is a huge conversation. So I don't really want to go into that on this call, but in the replay, I will have a free download. So I have a free download that is a checklist to help you declutter your space. It's set up for your workspace. So we're talking about your physical space, your paper, and your electronic work to help you declutter that area in your life. But essentially what you want to be able to do is delete or throw things away, shred important papers, get some electronic files going, or electronic filing system going, rather. You can archive things, and you also want to make sure that you really focus in on the things that need to be tossed out. And so often, the rule of thumb is if you haven't touched it or used it in 6 months, toss it out. When it's paper, we can oftentimes feel like we don't want to throw out something that we're going to need later. So again, that's where electronic filing can come into play, but also recognizing that there's a lot of places and cases now where you don't really need those things. So there's not a lot of paper that you actually have to keep anymore. You might want to keep it for that moment, get everything recorded, make sure you have all your notes, and then toss it. And a lot of times you can find that information at whatever organization you got it from, if they need it, because a lot of organizations are putting they have their electronic files in place up to whatever archive time. So most of the time we don't need a significant amount of paper that we keep. But again, that's a deeper conversation. So I will have that link available in the replay for download. So I'm going to close on this, and then once I close, I'll open up the call for any questions. But I want to close on this. This organization is serious, and it's far more serious than we give it credit for. And it costs you big bucks. It costs you big opportunity. It costs you a lot of stress. And it costs you a lot of time not accomplishing the goals that you envision. And I don't want that for you this year. So, the upfront investment can seem difficult to commit to, but the cost of not committing to this time can lead you down another year of unfulfilled goals, missed targets. So I hope that you find this information helpful and useful for your business. So I'm going to open up the line. I'm going to unmute everyone and just see if there are any questions. And then if not, no worries. And then I have a little bit more that I'll close out on. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Montecute.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
It was funny. I was about to leave and go to this workshop, and the title made me just stay home because when I saw it, I was like, to be honest, that's me. And like before I go to another workshop, that's gonna just feed my mind with more about the subject that I'm interested in and that in the field that I work in. I really need to focus on the foundation, which is organization. And I realize that I do suffer from chronic disorganization syndrome or whatever that is, and I know that I'd be a lot more, I'd make more and I'd be a more successful herbalist, if I was more organized. And I am a stacker. I have paper stacked everywhere. And I think it's hard sometimes. I'm one of those people where if I see it, I can place a value to it, Like, I was going to throw that, but I might need that later, So I'm just stacking. I start stacking, and it feels natural. And I know for many years I've used personality as an excuse on why I'm disorganized. I'm an artistic type. I'm this, blah, blah. But I know it's just not going to fly anymore. So I don't want to take up the whole question time. But I just want to basically ask, what do you think is a great way to start placing real value on things, and and just being able to get past the emotion, the emotion of that moment, which is lying to you, saying that you're going to use this thing later, but you need to throw it away. And then the second question is, how much is it to work with you one-on-one? That's it.
Yes, so let me talk about that with you offline if you don't mind, but I'll send that information to you.
Okay.
But, okay, so the first question being, how do you get past that emotional, blockage of the things that you actually need versus what you don't need, right?
Right.
So this is from my experience, and let me address something that you said in terms of personality, because you're right, a lot of people who are artistic and creative do use that as an excuse. But the reality of that is that artistic and creative people are visual. So it's not necessarily disorganization that makes you creative. You're visual. And so part of your systems that you create, you might want to find visual ways that you can have your that you can have in your space. So that might be, that might include more boards, or white space that you can put things up on versus having piles of paper, laying around. But in terms of how we get, to that, on that emotional side, I think what I've learned is that it's the act of actually doing it first. So going through those things and cleaning it out, and that's where having someone can really help, because that person can remind you that no, you don't need that. That's going in the trash pile. And, you might kind of fight a little bit, and there's always ways you can look up things. You can look up and find, and maybe I'll write a blog on this, and I'll make a note to see if I can find some research to write a blog on this, but there are certain documents that you do want to keep, and you can usually look up, and there's like a list of recommended documents that you want to keep and for how long. So, the easy one that comes off the top of my head is tax returns for 7 years. Why is the statute 7 years? Because they can't, the IRS, well, let me not say the IRS can't, but the IRS has a statute of limitations for most tax issues. So most of the time, it's not a need to keep your tax return past 7 years. Now, on the other side of that, the tax or the IRS actually keeps a copy of your return for you as well. So again, this kind of comes down to what's more important. I would prefer to keep a copy, but if for whatever reason you shredded a tax return, you can usually go back to the IRS and request for them to send you a copy of your tax return. So, a lot of times there's ways to get over it. There's very few documents that once destroyed are just forever destroyed and you can never get a hold of again. And I think once we realize that and really come to grips with that, we can let it go with a little bit more ease to say, if for some reason I did need this, I may have to track it back down, but it's not gone forever. At this point, I don't think anything is gone forever.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that would be my suggestion, though, is to sit down with someone who can help you for that moment to say, no, this needs to go to this pile, this needs to go to that pile. And when you're kind of, not letting go, they can be there to encourage you, to remind you of the purpose of what you're doing. And once that space is figured out, you're really going to feel a different sense of satisfaction. Yeah. Did that answer the question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Were there any other questions before I close out? Okay. No worries. So I just want to close out. Again, I just want to thank everyone for joining tonight's call. February 21st will be the next call. And if you find this call helpful, please do share with another business owner. Again, I will have the replay available on my YouTube channel, and I will also post that out. Don't forget that there will be links in that YouTube channel as well as a download to help you get your workspace cleared up. And then if you are interested in working with me one-on-one, I do have the productivity business coaching. You can visit my website at yourproductivebiz.com. My caveat here is that the business officially launches next month, and so there are still some updates on the website, but a significant amount of the information is up if you wanted to look. And I can also get in touch with you, Monica, to let you know about my services. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my Rise and Grind program, and then I'm just going to go ahead and close out the call. I will be opening up one pilot program with a maximum of 10 participants, and it will be at a huge discount in exchange for assessments and such, hopefully testimonials. That will be the goal. But yes, I want to make sure that the program is as valuable as I see it and get some honest feedback so that I can improve it for the official launch. So this will be the only time I'm offering the program at a very low rate. You can definitely inbox me if you're interested. The pilot program will launch mid-February, and participants will have to apply because I need them to meet certain criteria for the pilot program. So the Rise and Grind program is my signature 4-part system for greater productivity. And the content we will cover will help you find tools, resources, and methods that are designed to keep you focused on accomplishing your goals. We will do this by narrowing down your vision and establishing your goals, and then also to identify what obstacles are stopping you from getting there. And then we'll talk about solutions to help you bust through those obstacles by creating or assessing the right type of systems and rituals. And then we will follow that up through an accountability system, rather. And so this will be an exclusive program. It will be run in small groups. We will meet online each week for the duration of the course, and then through weekly sessions, we'll cover things like the right types of actions, identifying time killers, making sound decisions. We'll also have question and answer. There'll be customized homework and accountability with follow-ups. And then once the course is over, there'll be ongoing email support, and then there'll also be a private Facebook group that will be just for participants and previous participants of the group. So that's what I have going on, and if this is of interest to you, definitely reach out and let me know, and I'll get you the application. And again, I just really want to thank everyone for joining tonight's call. I really hope that this was helpful, and I will talk to you again on February 21st. I wish everyone a good night.
Thank you.